The loss came suddenly, without warning or preparation. One moment, life felt ordinary and full. There was laughter echoing through rooms, shared meals that stretched into long conversations, and plans spoken casually as if the future were guaranteed. We talked about days ahead, small trips, simple routines, never imagining how fragile all of it really was. Then everything shifted in a single breath. A phone call, a hospital room filled with harsh lights and unfamiliar sounds, machines humming where voices should have been, questions asked softly and answered vaguely. I remember standing there, trying to understand how life could fracture so completely in such a short time. The silence that followed was the most unsettling part. It wasn't dramatic or loud. It settled into my life quietly, following me home and filling every corner of the apartment. Rooms that once felt warm suddenly felt empty. Familiar spaces became reminders of what was missing. In the days that followed, I did what I knew how to do. I functioned. I showed up. I moved forward because stopping felt dangerous. I returned to work before I was ready. I answered messages with short replies. I told people I was okay because it was easier than explaining the truth. That phase felt like strength. On the surface, people praised my resilience. They admired how quickly I seemed to bounce back. I mistook their approval for proof that I was doing the right thing. In reality, I was running on adrenaline and denial, not healing. I filled my days with tasks to avoid my thoughts. I stayed busy so I wouldn't have to feel. Grief was pushed aside, postponed, ignored. I believed if I kept moving, it wouldn't catch me. I didn't understand that grief doesn't disappear when ignored. It waits. At night, exhaustion replaced distraction. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by memories and questions I couldn't answer. Mornings felt heavy. Getting out of bed required effort I didn't always have. Still, I forced myself to keep going. I convinced myself this was survival. That pushing through pain was bravery. That acknowledging how broken I felt would somehow make it worse. I thought if I pretended long enough, the act would become reality. Weeks passed like this. Life looked normal from the outside. Inside, I was hollowing out. I stopped noticing hunger. I stopped caring about clutter. The apartment grew messier as my energy disappeared. Small tasks felt overwhelming. Grief began to show itself in subtle ways. I lost track of time. I stared at walls longer than I should have. Conversations blurred together. I laughed when expected, but it felt disconnected, like a performance I had rehearsed too many times. I didn't realize how tired I was until my body started to resist. Headaches lingered. My chest felt tight for no clear reason. My patience were thin. I snapped at small inconveniences, then felt guilty afterward. Grief is patient like that. It doesn't demand attention immediately. It waits until your defenses are down, until you've used up all your strength pretending to be fine. It waits until the smallest thing can break you. My breaking point didn't come during a dramatic moment. It came on an ordinary evening, the kind that should have passed unnoticed. The sun had set quietly. The apartment was dim. I hadn't eaten all day, though I hadn't noticed until then. The dishes were piled in the sink, untouched. Laundry sat unfolded where it had been for days. I stood in the middle of the room, suddenly overwhelmed by how much I couldn't manage. The weight of it all pressed down at once. I slid down onto the floor without thinking, my back against the cabinet, knees pulled in. Tears came hard and fast, not gentle or controlled. My body shook as if it had been holding this in for too long. I cried until my chest hurt, until my throat burned, until my hands cramped from clenching them too tightly. It wasn't just sadness. It was frustration, exhaustion, fear, and longing all tangled together. I remember thinking I couldn't do this anymore, though I didn't know what this meant exactly. I just knew I had reached the edge of whatever strength I thought I had. There was nothing left to hold me up. That was when I heard the knock. At first, I thought I imagined it. Grief can blur reality. Sounds distort. Time stretches. But then it came again, gentle but deliberate. A knock that asked instead of demanded. My first instinct was to stay still, to let it pass. I didn't want to be seen like this. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want to pull myself together. The floor felt safer than the door. The knock came a third time, followed by a pause. Not impatient, not loud, just present. Whoever it was seemed willing to wait. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my shirt, though it did little to hide the truth. I took a deep breath that felt like it scraped my lungs. Standing up felt like lifting a weight I wasn't prepared for. When I opened the door, my neighbor stood there quietly, holding a bowl of soup. Steam rose gently, carrying a familiar, comforting smell. It caught me off guard how grounding that scent felt in that moment. They didn't look startled by my appearance. They didn't look away either. Their expression was soft, steady, human. They spoke calmly, as if they had rehearsed the words carefully. "I noticed your lights have been on all night lately," they said. "I just wanted to check on you." That was it. No questions, no assumptions, no pressure, just an observation and an offering. Something inside me cracked open. Not loudly, not completely, just enough to let some of the weight shift. I felt exposed and relieved at the same time, which confused me. I didn't know what to say. Words felt inadequate. I stepped aside without speaking, allowing them in. It was the first time I had let anyone cross that threshold since the loss. They placed the bowl on the counter gently, as if respecting the fragility of the space. We stood there in silence, and for once, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt shared. In that moment, I realized how far I had pushed myself, how alone I had been trying to carry something too heavy for one person. I didn't feel healed or fixed, but I felt less invisible. That ordinary evening marked the point where survival could no longer pretend to be strength. It was the moment when grief finally made itself known. Through collapse alone, but through connection. I hadn't expected,